Hi, I'm Michelle and I'm here at the Whetstone Park of Roses. When you go to the park, you'll often see trees, flower gardens, open fields, a pond, and many other things you'd find in a natural setting. Someone likely had it landscaped this way so that it could create an aesthetic effect. When you walk through here, you'll see that the flowers make you feel a certain way. They might make you feel happy or maybe peaceful, and that's the aesthetic effect. Aesthetics is the theory of beauty. It has to do with creating a mood or atmosphere. The roses here create a certain atmosphere in the park. Aesthetic theory applied here would say that the roses are beautiful, and so they make you feel happy, and they contribute to the overall aesthetic effect of pleasure and enjoyment. So let's go check out some more aesthetics in the park. While you take in the scenery, I'll explain a little history about aesthetic theory, and I'll tell you what it has to do with Poe. Aesthetic theory first began in the early 18th century with a philosopher named Immanuel Kant. His main ideas of aesthetics were those of pure beauty. Artwork seemed to often have concepts and meanings behind them, and so they had what he called impure beauty. Kant's theory of pure beauty had freedom from concepts. Basically, this means that you can look at a sunset or the colors of flowers, for example, and enjoy the beauty without attaching any meaning to it. This beauty simply holds the attention and is enjoyed for its own sake alone. There's no analyzing it or trying to understand it, just simple enjoyment. To Kant, when this simple enjoyment without meaning is achieved, one can feel harmonious with the world. Aesthetic theory often involves art and how it can affect someone. But it is not limited to just paintings and sculptures. There can be aesthetics in literature as well. After reading a story, it can make you feel a certain way and invoke certain emotions, so you could say it had an aesthetic effect. If you look past the meaning or symbolism behind the story and focus more on the overall effect, you can experience the aesthetics. Imagery use in literature is one way aesthetics can be achieved because it can create a sensory response very easily. Poe had his own theory of beauty where he said that beauty creates pleasure. To him, the purpose of poetry was to create a pleasurable feeling through its language. In other writing he was concerned with the overall effect it had on the reader. The domain of Arnheim really illustrates Poe's aesthetics in his writing. The domain of Arnheim is about a man named Ellison, who inherits a lot of money and ends up giving most of it away. He wants to try to create a perfect landscape through gardening because most natural landscapes aren't perfect. Eventually he goes and tries to find a perfect landscape that fits his vision. He's not interested in the money, instead he is interested in natural beauty. In this story, Poe explains his aesthetic theory and then he demonstrates it with imagery. In the first part of the story, there is a passage that gives us a glimpse of Poe's theory. Here indeed was the fairest field for the display of imagination and the endless combining of forms of novel beauty. The elements to enter into combination being, by a vast superiority, the most glorious which the earth could afford. In the multiform and multicolor of the flowers and the trees, he recognized the most direct and energetic efforts of nature at physical loveliness. And in the direction or concentration of this effort, or more properly, in its adaptation to the eyes which were to behold it on earth, he perceived that he should be employing the best means, laboring to the greatest advantage in the fulfillment not only of his own destiny as a poet, but of the august purposes for which the deity had implanted the poetic sentiment in man. In this passage we see that Ellison thought natural beauty was more superior to any other beauty, and that is why Ellison chose to be a gardener rather than a painter or musician. Then the narrator talks about physical loveliness that creates a fulfillment and implants a poetic sentiment in man. The poetic sentiment is a feeling or thought which is based on emotion and not reason. The natural beauty creates a pleasurable feeling which fulfills Ellison. Poe shows his aesthetic theory here that beauty creates the poetic sentiment or feeling. Then Poe demonstrates aesthetic effect towards the end of the story with his description of the domain of Arnheim. This description Poe gives is full of imagery, which he uses to create a picture in the mind of the reader. This in turn creates a certain effect. Meantime, the whole paradise of Arnheim bursts upon the view. There is a gush of entrancing melody, there is an oppressive sense of a strange sweet odor. There is a dreamlike intermingling to the eye of tall, slender eastern trees, bosky shrubberies, flocks of golden and crimson birds, lily-fringed lakes, meadows of violets, tulips, poppies, hyacinths, and tuberoses, long intertangled lines of silver streamlets, and upspringing confusedly from amid all, a mass of semi-Gothic, semi-Saracenic architecture, sustaining itself by miracle in mid-air, glittering in the red sunlight with 100 aureoles, minarets, and pinnacles, and seeming the phantom handiwork conjointly of the sylphs, of the fairies, of the genii, and of the gnomes. When you read this passage, you can picture the imagery in your mind and see the flowers everywhere. This imagery has an effect which might make you feel peaceful. We normally associate flowers with life and happiness and beauty, so Poe uses imagery to create this effect. Imagery is just one way to create aesthetics in literature, but in the domain of Arnheim, it proves effective at invoking certain emotions and feelings in the reader. For Poe, a story or poem was intended to have an overall effect on the reader. This was his aesthetic theory, that by using certain elements in his writings, the reader could walk away feeling something. In the domain of Arnheim, Poe was able to explain his aesthetic theory and then demonstrate it in a story format. As you've seen, aesthetics can be found in a wide range of things, from art to nature. It can be found in anything that is considered beautiful that creates a pleasurable emotion. In literature, imagery is used to create a desired mood, and this is done through its aesthetics.